Hello, everyone. Welcome to C-Suite Talks. We speak with industry leaders, introducing you to some of the most interesting people and businesses today. Welcome to C-Suite Talks. I'm Dianne Gubin, co-CEO of C-Suite, along with Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth Bilbing, co-CEO of C-Suite. And this week, we're talking to Grace Freedson, a leader in the book publishing world. Grace represents authors as a literary agent and works with the publishers to shape their offerings. Welcome, Grace. Good morning.
Thank you. And just a little editorial comment. It's Grace Freedson with two E's, Freedson.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Grace Freedson.
Yeah, so Grace, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
And the company, and your company, and the work you're doing.
Okay, my company as it exists today is Grace Freedson's Publishing Network. And I have made book publishing my entire career, having started when I was very, very, very young. And at that time working in publicity, which is the most fun for a young person in publishing. I was the one who planned all the parties. I was the one who got everybody on the Today Show, the Tonight Show, New York Times. So it was a fun thing. And over the years, I transitioned to different in-house positions. I transitioned from publicity into editorial. And then it was my gift to myself for the year 2000 to go out and launch a company on my own, Grace Freedson's Publishing Network, and I continue with that today.
Fabulous.
Terrific. That was I know, having been an entrepreneur too, it's a big move when you get out on your own.
Big, exciting move, and it's been a good gift for me.
So what are some of the unique publishing? Let me say that again. You've got challenges in publishing these days, right? So what are some of the things and changes in the industry that you're seeing?
Well, as an agent, and I wear several hats actually for my company, but as an agent per se, I work in adult nonfiction. And the challenge, and I'm assuming that you're referring to the 2-year pandemic that we've been immersed in, has been the fact that most people are working remotely. That means most people on the other side of the desk that I need to contact, which are acquisition people, acquisition editors. In my opinion, they've had fewer meetings as a result of working remotely and fewer people at their desks. So it's harder to get callbacks, email backs. So publishing could work at a snail's pace, and the snail's gotten slower over time. So just getting answers has been one of the challenging things. In terms of people writing new books and interesting books, there's always a wealth of information from people.
Fabulous. So, with the changes you've observed in book publishing and business environment in the past 2 years, what has stood out for you that people, your clients have had to deal with?
Well, many of my clients, I work with a great many academics who have really interesting pedigrees. They're a PhD in neuroscience or they're a math professor. And these folks do not invest their time or energy into having a social media platform. They're really not interested in Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And that's a very big impediment for them to get publishing contracts, because more and more publishers are eager for the author themselves to have their marketing platform in place. They need to have branding. They need to have their own personal following. And, a person who's worked their career in academia is not going to have that. Or, I have a forensic psychologist who specializes in courtroom cases where he gives the forensic details. He went out and hired a publicist and hired somebody to do some Facebook, but that's not his strong suit. But he does write an interesting book and has interesting stories to tell. So it's an unfortunate reality.
Yeah, I think I'm afraid of the security aspects of it. I know a lot of engineers. I know one engineer that still uses a checkbook all the time.
I use a checkbook, but not all the time.
I use a checkbook also.
Okay, so we're all automatic. Everything.
I'm QuickBooks, but sometimes you write a check.
I write it for my business. It's all QuickBooks, but personally, I write those checks. I ordered some new ones today.
So what I'm hearing, Grace, and by the way, for full disclosure, Grace is our agent, our book agent, as Beth and I are putting a book together. So I heard you with the social media platform, but for us, it's really C-suite as our platform. So do you think that do we have to have individual platforms? Tell us now so that we're prepared. Or is the C-suite platform okay for us?
Well, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when I go through the details of preparing a proposal that I will submit to a book publisher, I used to start with having them do a book overview or market analysis and send me 2 sample chapters. But now I tell them point blank, you have to show me how many Facebook followers you have. You have, because they can quantify everything at the publishing end. And I also say you have one chance to get your proposal in front of somebody. And if you don't take advantage of it and have everything in place, that opportunity goes away. So, you know, I guess C-suite could have their own set of followers as a venture, but they also look at what you're doing to brand yourselves.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh gosh. So Beth, we got to do
that's what I tell
individuals too.
people before I even read the proposal. I tell them that's what the acquisitions person at Simon & Schuster or Penguin, that's what they're going to look at first.
Okay.
Do
Sounds
LinkedIn
good.
followers count? Actually, I'm staying on this for one more moment. Does LinkedIn count?
LinkedIn counts also, but LinkedIn's getting old school already.
Oh, got it.
I like
LinkedIn for most of our demographic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's come back to you, Grace. So you are so passionate about this. So what is it that drives you for this? You know, besides to go to great parties since you
well, now I don't even have any great parties anymore to tell you about, unfortunately. But what drives me really is I meet interesting people every day of the week. And I learn something new from these interesting people every day of the week. So I guess because I have this tremendous curiosity and I'll read anything that's in front of me. I like to hear other people's stories. I like to hear their experience. I like to hear what drives them. Let's see, yesterday I spoke to one woman who's become very philanthropic and sadly as a result of losing a child to cancer. I spoke to my neuroscientist who has to revise his neuroscience for dummies. You know, so every day I'm learning and challenging and, you know, I always say if I retired, I would want to go back to school, but if I keep working, I don't have to go to school.
There you go.
Right, you keep reading all these great books.
Can you tell us kind of in our audience, what led you to book publishing and how did you become a literary agent? And what was that journey like?
Well, I was led by just a chance encounter when I graduated as a political science major from college. And when I moved to New York, I was just looking for a job. And when I interviewed for my first job, I really didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into, but the woman who interviewed me and I just clicked. We got along great. She told me about the job. She told me I would have to start at the bottom. And we just clicked and it just became really interesting. And an interesting sidebar was that we were doing publicity. We did the author tours and sometimes the publicists went on the tours with the authors at that point in time. So my boss went on the tour with one of the authors, fell in love with him. He was a Brit. She moved to the UK with him, never came back to the office. So in a short time, I advanced very quickly because she wasn't.
That's hysterical. I love it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
So that, so I got in, I started in publicity. Then I actually did a remote position that I created for myself when my daughter was young. And I won't tell you how long ago it was, but it was at a point in time that people did not work remotely or telecommute. Even freelance was a new word. And I did a business plan for the publisher I was working for, and I proved to them how I could work from my home for them. And I did that for 6 years. And actually they went out of business before I left them. And, the point of the story actually is that if you create a business plan and show a company your self-worth and how you can make your business plan work advantageously for them, you can open a lot of doors for yourself. And it's up to you to prove that you can make it work.
That's a great career tip.
Yeah.
And for our kids, we certainly zig and zag and make all sorts of stuff happen.
Yeah, no. So I created something that didn't exist at that time. As a matter of fact, my daughter was very little, and because it was such a unique position, my first author who heard my daughter screaming at the other end of the phone was like shocked and upset about it. Whereas if it happened today, you would say, oh, you know, go diaper your kid and come back to the phone, no problem.
Yeah, or go hush your dog, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Or what kind of dog do you have? I don't care that it's barking.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm glad that's kind of you were trailblazing for other careers that, you know, career women.
For sure, for sure.
I consider myself a group of many of women who trailblazed at that point in time. I really, you know, I share a lot of stories from women who were at Newsweek who could not get the title of reporter, only researcher because they weren't given reporter titles, or, you know, it was a very trailblazing time for many people.
For sure. So thank you for that. So thank you. So coming back to like, what kind of books are you or are book agents looking for now?
Well, as I said, I can only speak to myself. I've only worked in nonfiction. And so I don't know about the fiction market. I can't speak to that. Nonfiction, I handle diet, I handle business, fitness. I have the good fortune of pursuing the type of books I'm interested in, so that I probably wouldn't do a lot of books on science. Science fiction doesn't interest me, but science does interest me.
Right.
So I sort of pick and choose the topics that interest me.
At one point,
parenting, diet, fitness, business.
Yeah, at one point you said to me that business self-help isn't.
Business self-help is still very viable, still very good.
Oh, that's good. That's good. How do you have the odds of being successful, like having your book chosen and all that? Do you know what the odds of all that are?
Oh, that's a scary question, Beth.
It is a scary question, and I, you know, I don't want to. I couldn't hazard a guess for it. I really couldn't.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. So how do you decide what's the best topic for your book? How do you go about this? You know, why me? Why this book? How do you decide the best topic?
My guidance to authors is take a look at your credentials and write the book that your credentials support. So I have, you know, I'm trying to think of a pertinent one. But I have a computer scientist who also is a home cook and chef and caters. But they don't have the platform. They don't have the hook for being a cookbook author.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of discourage them for going into that direction, because if you're a computer scientist wanting to write a cookbook, you're up against Rachel Ray or Martha Stewart or somebody who really has the credentials.
Yeah.
So I say to you, write the book that your credentials support.
Right. So Beth, her book is going to be Cats in the Kitchen.
That would probably sell.
It probably would.
It would.
Put my chunky cat in there. Everybody would like it.
you can have this. So, you know, and again, that the gazillion-dollar question here is, you know, everybody wants a book agent, Grace, you know, and I know how we got to you is, you know, I know how we got to you, but how do most people find a book agent?
Well, I mean, there are directories that have book agents in there, and you just really have to do your due diligence to really study what the agent says is their expertise. Like if somebody were to come to me and say, I'm writing a novel, I would wonder where they got the idea that I'm the right person to approach. For myself personally, at this point, I go only by referrals. I don't have a website to get it. When I started, I had a website, and I got so many people who I had to reject because it didn't interest me. I didn't have time or whatever. So I really, and some of the referrals are really far flung, like in odd ways I come together with people, but I do it by referrals for myself.
That's fabulous. That's
right.
fabulous.
So I will give a tip to authors though.
Yeah, please.
So let's say you're writing a book about the chunky cat in the kitchen, right? I would say to a potential author, I know this is also old school, go to a bookstore and look at let's say the cookbook shelf for a humorous cookbook, let's say, and look inside that cookbook at the acknowledgments. Oftentimes, the author will acknowledge my terrific agent who helped me get this contract. So you're seeing in front of you a humorous cookbook and a writer saying, I couldn't have done it without this agent. So sometimes that's a good lead.
Right. Because for sure, as an agent, you're the one that opens the
There's a lot of
doors.
heavy lifting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So how do you maintain your publishing contacts?
Well, that too. And I have found that a little bit more challenging because pre-pandemic, I belonged to all kinds of networking organizations that I would go to monthly meetings and you know, the name of my company is Publishing Network, and it was chosen because I always considered myself a consummate networker and love to network and meet new people. But you know, I go through the trade journals. I monitor who's publishing what, who is representing what. So I look at who the contacts are. There's a lot of musical people in the book publishing industry. So a contact that I might have had at publisher A has moved to publisher B, and I will send them a note saying, oh, congratulations on moving to publisher B. What kind of stuff are you doing now? So, you know, you have to stay tuned to who's moving and who's going where.
It's a big sales job.
Yeah. Are you starting to get back in person? Are they starting to do those events again?
No. Well, actually, one of the organizations that used to have lunches at the 21 Club,
I love it.
and then we had lunches at different restaurants, now has moved into happy hours. Oh. And I'm not in Manhattan. I don't live in Manhattan, so I don't invest myself into going into the city for a happy hour. It's just,
it's a big hike. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's different networking, and it's sad. I do miss it.
Yeah. I'm hoping just take some time and it'll come back. But
yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the book proposal, what goes into a book proposal, and how important is it?
Right, exactly. So especially since we know you needed to get to the next step, which is, does someone, if they wanted to find you, Grace, do they need to send you a book proposal?
Oftentimes they'll just send me a query letter, like, you know, dear Grace, I'm working on a book about cats in the kitchen, and I expect it to have 10 chapters, and each chapter will be a different meal or whatever. And then they send me a proposal, or I will give them the details. And as I said, I have one chance to represent your proposal to a book publisher. So I will go back and forth with you until it's right. And you need to have an overview of the book. You know, what is this book about? Then you need to have a market analysis. And the overview could be one page. Market analysis, who is the audience for your book? And I often tell people, let's say it's about job searching for women. You know, somebody will come to me and they'll say it's a job search book for women who are just entering and women who are experienced. And I will tell them no, because the job market is different depending on where you are in the job market. So sometimes if you make your concept narrower, you're actually reaching a bigger audience because you're very specific to those people who need it. So your market analysis is one pager. Then you need the table of contents, and that can be annotated, you know, a little, you know, 2 sentences, what's in each chapter. Then I would need 2 sample chapters. And I tell authors, you know, be ready with more chapters because a publisher who's really interested wants to see more chapters.
Okay.
And then you need to do, I'm going to leave the social media for the end, by the way. You need to do a competitive analysis. And, you know, oftentimes writers don't take this as seriously as I recommend, because if Simon & Schuster sees there's a book similar to what you have in mind, they're going to be, like, published by Penguin, they're going to be jealous and want to have one too. So you have to do a competitive analysis, 5 titles published within the past 5 years, And they want to see that there's competition published by really good publishers. They don't want to see self-published out there. They don't want to see, they want to see top tier publishers. So if you're doing a book on careers for women, list 5, and you have to include the title, the author, publisher, year of publication, and 1 or 2 sentences as to how your book compares and is better. And then finally, your credentials, your resume, why this book, what gives you the authority to write this book, and nowadays what your social media platform is, what speaking appearances you have, what webinars, podcasts, what all your social media followers, because you're essentially branding yourself. And let's say you have a speaking appearance every month and you have 100 people in front of you. Well, that could be potentially 100 books sold.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Right,
What about these people that self-publish on Amazon? There's a lot of them.
Well, in years past, I might have poo-pooed it, but more and more people are doing it. They want control of it. I find that people who do it are often those people who do speak once a month to an audience. So they want their book quickly, which they can get because book publishing moves slowly. And I'll go back to that in a minute. So if you're speaking in front of 200 people this September and you can run off your book right away, you'll have books to sell right away. The reality is, if you have a traditional book publisher, they'll take care of all the distribution, getting it in the bookstores, getting it on Amazon. So that headache is not yours anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the distribution that really makes it critical.
That's interesting. I really appreciate that, because we do have, in our world with C-suite, we have a lot of authors, and we have had a lot of speakers that then have books, and some of them published through Amazon. So that was great insight to hear that. Yeah.
No, as I said, in the past, I never would have suggested it, but I see it. If you you have a ready market for it and you want it quickly, but you have to be really careful about editing, about packaging. You want to have a nice package.
Right. And it's also the pay to play model too, often. Right.
Exactly.
I was going to, okay.
So Dianne, you want to wrap up with the last question?
Well, yeah. So Grace, I want to know what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you haven't mentioned yet, or anything that you'd like to share with our audience?
One is to be really receptive and responsive, to suggestions given to you by an experienced publishing professional who knows the market. And, if I suggest that you have to pay attention to the competition, I say it because if you don't do it right and I submit it because you're too lazy or not vested in, and there are lazy people out there.
Yeah, there are.
So if you're not doing it, I can tell you your success ratio plummets, and it's not that high to begin with. The other thing that I've observed, one of the things, because in the office environment today, not everybody's there every day. I'm finding the need for more mentoring of young professionals moving up. I had people to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
I had meetings that I had to be bored through, but I learned at those meetings. I learned to express my opinion. I learned to share opposing opinion and listen to somebody else's viewpoint. And I would wish people come back to the office to learn from one another and share ideas. And, that's what I would recommend.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you, Grace. It's been
awesome.
Amazing. So thank you for being with us today. We truly enjoy it. And
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes.
Grace Freedson, and your company again is Grace Freedson
Publishing Network.
Publishing Network. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you to our sponsors, Google, RSM, an accounting firm, Manette, which is a law firm that sponsored us from the beginning, Interpublic Group, a global advertising and marketing company, and Amplify Professional Services. That's Diane's firm, executive search and IT consulting. Thank you for listening.
And hit the subscribe button on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else you find your podcasts, or on this, or anywhere you find us. Leave us a review. Follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, because we've got to get our followers up, as
Yes,
Grace said. So please help support us.
I'm looking for your proposals.
Great. Oh, it's on its way, but it'll be like probably mid-September. We love hearing from you. So send us an email. Actually, send it to Beth@csuite.org, and check out our website, csuite.org. And that's it for today. Bye.